Well, welcome to the City Club Forum for the two candidates running for Whatcom County Executive. We're thrilled to have Tony Larson and Satpal Sidhu with us today, and I'll let them introduce themselves in a few minutes. But first, as I did when we had the mayoral candidates last month, I'd just like to just say thank you. Running for public office takes a great deal of energy, courage, dedication. You also lose a lot of sleep while you're doing this. So just like to thank you all for putting yourselves out there on the line for all of us. It's what makes our democracy work. Now, a brief word about the office you're running for. The county executive is elected to a 4-year term with a salary of $170,402 annually. The executive recommends an annual budget to county council, appoints members to boards and commissions, enforces ordinances, state statutes in the county, estimates quarterly and annual revenues, represents Whatcom County at local, regional, state, and federal levels, and supervises all administrative offices and executive departments. Now, a word about our format. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for an opening statement. Then I will pose some questions. Each candidate will have 90 seconds for a response. Our timers today, Tanya and Carol, will hold up a card when you have 15 seconds left, a card just like this one, and then a stop sign. And then we have the dreaded bell that will ring if you persist. Then we'll have what I'm calling a short lightning round with some shorter, more personal questions and responses. These will be very short responses, and I'll talk about that again when we get to the lightning round. And then after that, we'll open up to the floor for questions from name card wearing City Club members. So have your name cards on. Now we tossed a coin just a few minutes ago. And as a result of that coin toss, Tony Larson will speak first with your opening statement.
Good afternoon, everybody. I bet you're wondering whether that meant I won or I lost, right? I go first. He didn't say. My name is Tony Larson, running for county executive, as you know. I was born in Bellingham. I grew up in the Roosevelt neighborhood. For those of you that have been around here for any length of time, I was in 2nd grade when I was the first student group to enter the new Roosevelt school. I'll just ask trivia-wise, does anybody know where the other Roosevelt school was prior to the one elementary that was built there on Woburn Street? I graduated from Western Washington University, grew up in Whatcom County, studied economics and finance at Western, started my first business as a student at Western Washington University, transitioned out after graduation and started a business, and I've run multiple businesses since then. I've been actively involved in the community really all my life. Part of the reason for that is I love this community. I have this primary question I think drives my life, and that is how can I make things better? And that's sort of what's driven my public service and other things. I'm the founder of and president of the Whatcom Business Alliance, and that my involvement with that really goes back to that primary question: how can I make things better? We're an advocacy organization for businesses, small and large, in Whatcom County, focus on trying to facilitate economic prosperity in our community. In terms of county executive, I think we've been sort of on the circuit of talking to communities and people about Whatcom County, and really the thing that's driving all the questions and the issues is really that we know that Whatcom County has been changing. I mean, I know obviously since I was born it's changed a lot, but even over the last 5 years we've seen an 8.5% population increase. And that's not going to stop. I mean, we all know that we live in a beautiful area, and there's a number of challenges that are creeping up associated with that growth. We need to be smart about it, and hopefully we'll have an opportunity to get more in-depth on some of those issues a little bit later.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Sidhu.
Yes. Hello, everyone. My name is Satpal Sidhu, and yes, I want to be your next county executive. Thanks to the City Club for organizing this forum, and thanks to all of you, many of you who gave me a vote of confidence in the primary. As you have known, that I have a passion to serve our community, and I bring very unique set of skills and qualifications to the office of the county executive. One thing I really want to emphasize that we all know that we are better than the politics we have of today. We have more in common than what divides us. And we must not be powerless to work together and find solutions to our common problems. Because if we look at our air, our water, our jobs, our climate, our housing, all these issues are common issues. These are not partisan issues, and we should recognize that. The other part is when we talk about solving things is consensus. Consensus doesn't mean you have to agree on everything. What it means is together we come up with a solution, something we can live with. And I think that is an important that we must be able to discuss, disagree, but still love each other. I think that's really missing. As a county leader, I will really, bridge this divide. And I will work to make the county government work for all the citizens, not just one group. And it takes a vision, a determination, and hard work to transform our county for a better future for our kids and grandkids. And I'm ready to do the hard work. Thank you.
Okay, thanks to you both. Let's start with an issue that has been around in Whatcom County for quite some time now, and certainly is one that's been discussed in this forum before. There's an ongoing controversy over what to do at Cherry Point. Proposed changes in the county's comprehensive plan would prohibit new fossil fuel transshipment facilities and the conversion of existing facilities to such use. Do you support this, and why or why not? Let's start with Mr. Sidhu.
I think Cherry Point Industries are the legacy industries, and they have very high-paying jobs, and we need to preserve them. But just because they have high-paying jobs, we have to be watchful. As a community, we are the leaders of our community. We need to protect our community. And I think this comp plan changes and moratorium is totally demonized. Now, if you look at the first question was, we don't want this to become an export terminal. Second thing is, if you're doing something, get a conditional use permit. These are not job killers. But that's the extreme view taken by a lot of lobbyist people, that this is going to kill the industry. I asked this question directly to BP management. Can you issue a statement that you have no plan to export crude oil for next 20 years? Simple. They refused. So I think that the second question I asked him, if the community asks you questions, is that a good enough reason for you to leave this county? They said no. And that's what we are being told. You know, if we ask questions, they're going to leave. I don't think so. I think that we must work responsibly. We are board of directors as the county council of our community. They have board of directors for their corporation shareholders. We have our interest. We should protect our interests. Sorry. Thank you.
Mr. Larson.
Relating to Cherry Point, the amendments that are being proposed in the comprehensive plan, it's bad policy. The focus is really and the objective is really 2 oil refineries that are out there. But Cherry Point is much more than 2 oil refineries. You know, there are wood product manufacturers. We've got metal manufacturing. We've got food manufacturing. There's extraordinary opportunity out there. There's opportunity for, you know, to really create an energy transition to renewables. And the challenge with the comprehensive plan, hey, the refineries themselves, absolutely, that's a dangerous industry. I mean, it should be regulated, and it is regulated. I mean, P66, they're one of 5 refineries in the country that have earned the five-star energy rating. They're really good at what they do. They should be regulated. They should be regulated strongly. But essentially, what the comp plan is doing, it's going to throw the baby out with the bathwater. I mean, there's a project that P66 is working on, and BP has one in the horizon as well that would even be bigger. But this is a $1 billion project, giving us exactly what we want, and that is a renewable diesel facility. The investment would be anywhere from $600 million to $1 billion. It would create jobs, and they would essentially use animal fats and oils, and it would be 100% renewable. The language, the way it's written, would not allow that to be permitted, and a lot of other opportunities out there would not be permitted.
Okay, thanks to you both. Let's stick with that part of the county for a while. The glaciers are melting, and already sea level rise has caused destruction in county areas. Witness the storm in Birch Bay this past spring and the previous winter. And just today, a UN report says that the oceans are under severe strain from climate change. What should the county do to prepare for rising sea levels that are coming with climate change? Mr. Larson?
Well, you know, that's a great question. I think that question really is, what can the county executive do as the leader of Whatcom County government? And I think there are a number of things. I think we start first and foremost, and we recognize that this last May at the state level, the energy electricity bill, as they called it, was passed, and it's calling from you know, for 100% renewables from our utilities by 2045. I believe it's calling for complete elimination of coal as a source for energy by 2030. So first and foremost, supporting that. You know, I think we do need to understand, when I think about climate change, there's a bunch of things we can do in terms of sort of nibbling around the edges, but we are talking about a global problem. One of the things that I would really focus on is Lake Whatcom. You know, when the temperature is warmer, it's much more difficult for oxygen to break through the surface, and when oxygen doesn't get to the bottom of Lake Whatcom, it'll create algae blooms, and that's our drinking water, half the county's drinking waters. I think there's some technologies and some innovations I'd really love to talk about today that I think we could employ and make our drinking water cleaner and safer. And I think there are a number of other things, you know, investing in infrastructure for electric vehicles and all kinds of little things we can do. But, you know, energy efficiency in the buildings that Whatcom County owns, you know, we can look at, obviously, our recycling programs. We can look at our fleet, you know, the Whatcom County fleet. Some of them are hybrid already. We can look at, you know, a transition to hybrid, and there's just a number of other things.
Okay, Mr. Sidhu.
Okay. The first thing is, climate change is not a hoax. I think just admitting to that is a first step people need to take. The second thing is that what would I do as a county executive? The first thing I would do is order an audit of all the county operations and create a baseline for our carbon footprint. Then we know some things we can do in short term, some things we can do in medium term, some things we can take steps for a long term. That's the first thing we need to get done. The second thing is that we have a city climate advisory committee and a county climate advisory committee. I think they need help. They need support to do their work. They are the experts. They have spent their lives learning this science, and we should have a science-driven agenda for our county government. And I will provide that support, and I will provide which ways we can implement their recommendation on short-term, medium-term, long-term. And the other thing is, which I've talked all through my campaign, I would like to work with the community to plant 1 million trees in our county right-of-ways and in our farm area and a lot of wetlands. And I think 6 trees can mitigate 1 car. And that will be mitigating 30,000 cars just in our county. If every county does that, we can do that. India, they did 227 million trees in one day. Sorry.
Okay, well, let's stick with water. Follow up on that. Let's make this first question to Mr. Sidhu. Do you believe we have enough water in the county? And how do you propose balancing the needs of farmers, the needs of the tribes, the needs of homeowners, industries, the cities for water?
I think we have limited water, but we have plenty of water in the sense when people say that, oh, it's so much rains here, look outside, it's raining, and they laugh. We should realize that we have 40 miles between our ocean and our mountains, and we have only 20 miles of a river. If the rain falls today, within 4 hours, that water is in the ocean. We don't have the luxury of a 70-mile-long river to do something, and we have nothing to do with that. That's why we have shortage of water. We have 4 months of shortage of water, and there has been a plan proposed by Lummi Nation that we should divert part of the water from the river up north with a pipeline and feed all these 5 creeks at the low in-stream flows. There's been a plan that Birchway has a deep well aquifer. If we can do that, we can provide the drinking water to the North County, which have high nitrates, as well as alleviate the low stream flow issues. And then we will look at that we have enough water for the farmers, because we cannot have fish compete with farmers. We need both. And we can solve that problem within our county. We have the means, we have the thing, just that we have to get it on one table like I started with, and sit down and discuss. And we have not been able to do that, and I will try my best that we can sit together and do that.
Thank you. Mr. Larson.
Yeah, I believe we have plenty of water in Whatcom County. The challenge is that we need to make sure that that water is directed, and it needs to be managed, and we need to pull the politics out of this entire issue. I've connected. I've got an idea that I'd like to implement as county executive, and I call it More Fish, Healthier Farms, because there is a direct connection between our fishing industry, some of the challenges that are taking place with the orcas, the diminishing in the southern pods of the orcas, and in water. And essentially, it's a 6-step plan, and it goes like this. First and foremost, we need state-of-the-art fish hatchery. That's completely supported by a group called San Juan Area Sea Life. And essentially what they want to do is they're modeling the fish hatcheries from Alaska, world-class fish hatcheries that we can create here and bring the runs back to the 1985 levels. The second piece is expand fish habitat. Much more work has to be done, but many people involved know what's happening there. We need to bring the parties together. Third, we need to accelerate the efforts to protect and improve our water quality. That's a piece that really is going to require all the partners, including the tribes, need to come together, the farmers, et cetera. Third, we need to secure water for our fish and farms. And I've got much more details in every piece of these. And then we have to control the salmon predation. There's increasing number of predators out in the San Juan area, and we're Marine Area 7, and that's where this plan would be directed. And then finally, what I would do is I'd create a fish restoration coordinator position with the county, and that person would answer directly to me. Ding, ding.
All right. Good time management there. Whatcom County's population is becoming increasingly diverse. Meanwhile, racism has become a major issue in national politics. Do you think racism is a problem here, and what would you do to address it? Mr. Larson.
Yeah, I mean, that's interesting. I was talking to Bill Elfo last night, and back when I was on county council 9 years ago, I remember going to a gang meeting with the gang task force with the sheriff, and at the time they told me that in the prison, in the local jails, the biggest, we had M13 and a bunch of gang activity going on, but the most prevalent one in the jails were the skinheads and, white supremacists. And, if you're just walking around and we're involved in our regular activities, we don't see it. Because we don't see it doesn't mean it's real. I did talk to him in 2013 or so. I think they arrested, and there was a major drug cartel associated with that. They arrested the ringleader. They've got an eye out on a group in Skagit County that also has a presence here. But ultimately, it is I think it really is an issue. If you are racist, it really goes to something really deep and dark in your heart. I mean, that is, I don't know how you legislate that, but I think awareness is where it starts. And, as a county executive, I don't know what I can do precisely, but I'd be open to talking to groups. And, clearly, there's no place for that in Whatcom County, and we would just need to sort of figure out how we can work together and address those kinds of issues.
Thank you. Mr. Sidhu.
Yes. Racism, if we look at the history of Bellingham, racism has been there for a long time. You probably know that we built the Arch of Healing and Reconciliation just last year, and that was a memorial for all those people who went through that issues. Let me say another way. I come here from India 30 years ago, and I have served 5 years on the county council. That is a sign that the people of Whatcom County are not racist, but racism does exist. I'll tell you a story, tell you an incident. This Sunday, my son went to Blaine. There was one of my signs in Custer area, which was painted with a spray can paint, and N-word was written on it. And there were 2 bullet holes in my sign. I got that back. I shared with Sheriff Elfo. I have shared with FBI and other authorities. So it is still here. It may be less. And we all, means all, everybody must condemn that. Just saying that more awareness is needed. How many? It's been 100 years to doing awareness? Thank you.
Okay. There is a consensus that we need a new jail facility. Where should it be? How will you put it there? Mr. Sidhu.
I think that the question is a balanced criminal justice system. I think the balance is that what was true in 70s or 80s, if somebody does something, put them in the locker, throw away the key, problem solved, community is happy. I don't think that's where we are today. We need to have a balance of services in our community. We need a choice of treatments in our community for long-term mental health addictions. It's a problem we have created, these addictions. That's a long answer. But I think at the same time, we have started the construction next Monday, a $10 million triage center. People, addicted people, people with mental health don't belong in jail. Then after funding these things, we should have a humane building for our current jail. The current jail is fine, but there is not, it's the people who work there, they are in a 10-year sentence because they are there for 10 years. Other people come for 3 months and leave. And I think that we need a new building for our jail. Thank you.
Mr. Larson?
Yeah, the triage center is not going to be nearly enough. It's a great start, 16 more beds, and there's a reason for 16 because to get funding, I think it's 16 at a time that you can get federal funding for. But on the jail itself, I mean, clearly we need a new jail. If it was easy, it would have been done. It was Jack Lau's, his very first term, he talked about building a jail. Here we are 8 years later, a jail's not built. In the last 5 years, construction costs have increased by 26% in Whatcom County. It's becoming more and more challenging. I would say this, I've got my opinion. I mean, I've been in the jail many times on tours. On tours. I've actually been there a lot. I taught Bible study in our jails locally, and it is, I believe it's inhumane. I believe it's unsafe for the people that work there. We do need a transition. I think it needs to be connected with really a much larger triage opportunity where we can sort of take people in. I believe, you know, when there's challenges on the street that we have to get them connected and then directed to the resources that they need to transition them out of there. And so as county executive, I'm not going to take, it's been turned down twice by voters. There's a lot of politics associated with it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bring folks together. You decide what you want, and as executive, I will execute. I will find the funding. I will get it built, but I need to make sure that as a community that we're on the same page. And when we are, I will.
Okay, thank you. Let's stick with crime for a while. Gun violence, a deadly reality in this country. And as we've seen in recent incidents, local governments often wind up bearing the cost. Yet Washington, like most states, preempts local governments from enacting most gun-related ordinances. So what, if anything, can a county executive do to address gun violence in the community? Mr. Sidhu. No, Mr. Larson.
Mr. Larson.
Yes.
You know, I haven't thought that through a whole lot, you know, what a county executive could do, but that's the right question, is as county executive, what can you do? And I would say this, that generally speaking, you know, there was a situation that happened a few years ago. Maybe it was in the news. You all may have heard about it, but it was a shooting that took place at the Macy's in Burlington. Everybody remember that? It was at a young man came in, and I guess it was his girlfriend working at the cosmetic counter. And my daughter works at now she's the cosmetic counter manager at Nordstrom in Seattle. And that man came in, and literally he shot the place up, and he took off, and they caught him later. And it was after that I applied for a concealed carry permit. I got it, and I carry a firearm. I learned how to use it, and I carry it. And my thinking was, you know, in a situation like that, if there's a bad guy there, my hope is that there's one good guy. You know, that's how I've addressed that personally. You know, in terms of what the county executive could do, I don't know that the county executive could do much, but you know, it's I would be open to ideas, suggestions, bringing people together. And if there's a, you know, that really is would probably be a county council issue. All the legislative stuff is county council. If they decided to do something, my job would be to execute that plan, and that's what I would do.
Mr. Sidhu?
I migrated from India to this country to come to a civil society, a developed country. Why would I need a gun to live in here? It took me 20 years to figure it out. Why is this gun culture in this country? And another thing is, gun culture is fine. Then there is any sensible laws. If somebody suggests there are people who oppose them as that it encroachment on freedom, I cannot relate to that, how freedom, we do so many things which are regulated. You know, I spoke something at the county council, how the regulation to talk about regulating boats that, which can affect our drinking water. Just proposing simple regulations. I have been on the TV now, videos are being made of me and everything that is against recreation. Like just talking about preserving water is now turned into that I'm anti-recreation. That's exactly what happens. If we say that let's have regulations for our guns, he's anti-America. He's anti-America this, America that, cost on our freedoms. And you know how much we have suffered in the last 10 years with these mass shootings? It's our own fault. We are not able to be sensible, and that's what I will do as a county executive, be sensible.
Okay. Let's look at housing. Housing costs are rising in Whatcom County. Many young people and others simply can't afford to rent or buy a home here, so they leave. How would you deal with this crisis? And be specific. What are the first two specific things you could do about this housing affordability crisis? Mr. Sidhu?
Yes. I think that we need to revisit our land use policies which were developed in the 70s. They were perfect. They were better, not perfect. Nothing is perfect. I think they were suitable at that time, and they are not suitable today. We need to do three things: infill, mixed zoning, and opening up, expanding the opportunities, buildable lots. This is not something county executive does it by themselves, but the county council does it. The public, actually, you control the county council, you control the county executive. If we come up with sensible proposals to revise our land use policies, we could solve this issue. It's not going to get solved tomorrow, but we can definitely solve it. There are many proposals by different people I've learned over the last 2 years. It's not something happened yesterday. And I think I would work on doing these three things: infill, higher density, and more land use available for construction. Don't use prime ag lands like what is happening in Linden, what is happening in Ferndale edges, that we are now encroaching on our prime agricultural lands for housing. I think we need to do something. We can't just sit and think what happens in 10 years or what happened. We should plan today what should we look like in 2050.
Mr. Larson?
First, and that's just simply not going to be enough. I mean, we are in a housing crisis now. It's and as county executive, first thing I would do is declare that we are in a housing crisis. There's three pieces to it, really. There's the low-income housing. There's affordable. Everybody talks about affordable, but the reality is nothing's affordable if you don't have a job, if you don't have the income. And finally, there's the worker housing. We've got a worker housing. It's a supply problem. That's where we're at. So if you look at the numbers, I mean, basically in Whatcom County right now, we've got a vacancy rate of below 1%. It's about 0.7%. In order to stabilize prices, we're going to have to get that between 4 and 6%. That means bringing 3,500 to 4,000 units online over the next per year over the next 4 years. We can't do that without complete focus. It's going to require us getting together with all the small city mayors, the new mayor that's elected in Bellingham, and the county executive. We're going to have to get a comprehensive countywide plan because now there are units that are going up in Blaine. Ferndale's taking on some, but that is an issue that really needs to be focused on. And then the other side of it, if we're talking about affordability, the other side is the job part. I mean, right now the medium income required to buy a home, the median home in Whatcom County is $63,000. The median household income right now is $56,000. So right now it's out of reach for young people. I mean, that's a challenge. It's affordable for people that are selling their equity and coming in from California, but not for our young people. That needs to be addressed, and it needs to be really taken seriously. We've been talking about it for the last 20 years and been doing nothing about it.
Let's stick with this issue and expand a little bit. As you noted, Mr. Larson, we're experiencing population growth, and there are some studies that we are expecting the equivalent of 2 new Ferndales in the coming years. So how would you work with the Bellingham mayor, the Lummi Nation, the small cities, and others to manage this growth so as to maintain our agriculture areas and maintain the quality of life we have here in Whatcom County?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. That really goes to the heart of it, and that's why we have to that's why we need a comprehensive plan in Whatcom County. The mayor of Ferndale, the mayor of Linden, the mayor of Blaine, the mayor of Sumas, the mayor of Everson, the mayor of Nooksack have all endorsed my campaign. I've had conversations with them about what we need to do. Had a conversation, last night. We had the Bellingham mayor candidates. We got Seth and April that are working out. We are all going to have to work together. We're also going to have to work with our Port of Bellingham. They are the official ADO, the Associate development organization. They're our official economic development organization. But ultimately, we're going to have to look at our urban growth areas. We're going to have to look at expanding those, and these are things that aren't politically popular. But if, some of this is mathematics. I mean, it is literally, if the supply isn't there, it's like the boy putting the finger in the dike. The water is going to be coming out in a bunch of other places. And there are good-hearted people that really want to solve this, but we're going to have to get together and really look through the planning department. We're going to have to look at annexation. There's just a number of things that we're going to have to do, and it's going to take a change in mindset, because the mindset now is that we all love our community and we don't want it to change. And if we sort of put a blind's eye to that concept, we're going to get negative growth. We're going to get negative implications. We have to be smart about it and get out in front of it. And that's something that's only going to happen if we do it comprehensively. And I'm absolutely committed to doing it.
Mr. Sidhu.
We do have a comprehensive plan. We do have projections, which has been with all the city mayors together. 2015, we sat down. That's where the estimate comes from, 65 to 70,000 people. It was allocated that 35,000 people will grow in Bellingham and the rest in other cities and things. So it's not something which is being not done. I think the issue is there are a lot of slogans. Nobody does the work. That's the issue. And you heard some slogans right now that will work together. I think the thing is the crux goes to the policy changes. And the county executive doesn't have to be only county executive to run the county. County executive is an elected person. A person should actually influence the policy before it's being made, because the county executive can go in front of the council, can go in front of people. Because people elect the council, people elect the county executive, and be the person to advocate the policy which will take us over the next 25, 30 years. Like I said, what we are doing, one development at a time. 5 acres here, 10 acres here, one building here, one building there. What happens 10 years later, say, oh, how the heck this happened? Because we don't have a plan. We don't have that. We know how many people are going to come. We should have a vision that in 2040, this is how a county should look like, and work towards that.
Thank you. Let's stick with, you mentioned how the county executive needs to work with county council on this. And at the beginning, we noted that one of the main roles of the county executive is to present a budget. But what is the role of council in shaping those initial budget proposals? Do you just go to council and say, this is my proposal, or do you get input from council before? Mr. Sidhu?
Yes, very good question. I have learned a few things in 5 years. I think that's the approach I would take. I think right now it's been that the county executive does the budget. It's a secret until like September or August, and then we get a sneak peek. Means county council gets a sneak peek, and then they do their tinkering, get back. County council is a part-time people, and then they have a summer break. I think that it should be a collaborative process from the start, and I have some ideas about it. How to do that with what I have learned. I think it should be a collaborative effort, not the last-minute horse trading in November when December is the deadline and there are only one meeting in December and we have to pass the budget. I think that's not a right way of doing it, and I will change that as a county executive.
Mr. Larson?
Yeah, I think that opens up the conversation as we talk about the budget into the challenges that I've seen in the budget. All my life, I understand financials. I understand how to read them through my business work that I've done. You have to be accountable. You have to know where your numbers are. You need to know what your cash flow looks like. And probably the biggest challenge that I've seen in the budget that's going to have to be addressed is that over the last 5 years, we've seen the percentage of labor and benefits for county employees crowding out more and more of the general budget. And just keep in mind, we've got a $220 million budget for Whatcom County, and much of those dollars are designated. You know, they are already really focused on projects, and sometimes by law, by federal law, state law, they're already designated. So when you talk about discretionary spending, you know, you're really talking about the general fund. 5 years ago, 65% of the general fund was taken up by labor and benefits. This last year, it was 69%. So that's growing. It's outpacing inflation. It's outpacing revenues. Even though this year, with $520 million in new construction, property tax revenues are increasing. We're going to see about a 5% increase in revenues from sales tax, but yet that number is still crowding out. I've got a plan that I can't tell you, well, and I've got 15 seconds left. I hope we can get back to it. I could save the county $3 million in that. It's going to take working together, but there are creative ways of providing equal benefits at a substantially lower cost. And in fact, I think once I do it for Whatcom County, City of Bellingham is going to need to jump on, because they're at 71% of their general budget.
Okay, let's stick with that then. County executive has to deal with 6 collective bargaining units. What's your experience in collective bargaining, and what approach will you take in these negotiations over these contentious issues like health care? Mr. Larson.
My turn. It won't be contentious. I've worked with unions before. I'm supported by Labor 292, the laborers. There's a model, and it's a healthcare model, and it's being employed here already. It's not it's not my big idea. It is a big idea, but Bellingham Cold Storage and Ocean Seafoods have come together and they've done it. Essentially, what it is you've got you self-insure. You self-insure. You create. You essentially have reinsurance. So for all the major medical stuff, you have reinsurance. If there's brain surgery or cancer for somebody, but then the real kicker is that you build your own clinics. And these clinics, third parties do it. We could build our own clinics. That's overhead. And it takes about 300 employees to break even on that. Bellingham Cold Storage teamed with Ocean Seafoods, and they've not only stopped the spiraling increase in their health benefits, but it actually stopped, and the costs have actually gone down. Initially, people were apprehensive. They're a Teamsters group. The unions bought into it. And they know they're going to get better benefits. And it really is an extraordinary model. We can employ it not only with Whatcom County, but if we combine with the City of Bellingham, we could save the City of Bellingham, with 1,600 combined employees, we could save both municipalities lots of money. And that money can be directed towards resources that are needed.
Okay. Mr. Sidhu.
The county government is not a business organization. It's a public service organization. It's you collectively collect people, put them in charge that you need look after our needs. That's why we are employee-oriented company. You want to call it company, organization. If you look at any organization like that, 65% of are just wages. I just worked at Bellingham Tech. It's just wages, because these are the people who are serving. The rest of the money goes to different projects. The other part is all the money, if you look at outside the wages, the money is capital projects, public works, planning development, they're all engineering related. And I'm a professional engineer with a master's in business administration. I understand these budgets. I understand how to make the savings. It cannot be balanced just on the backs of the workers. I have been endorsed by firefighters and Teamsters and Northwest Central Labor and many other organizations. But that's the same thing we are talking. They're not high enough wages, you can't afford anything. Now you're going to cut somebody's wages and say now you're going to make you poor, so that there is a difference of the upper layer of our society and the lower layer of our society. We cannot make fighting within the lower layer of our society and not look at the upper layer.
Okay, thank you. The county executive runs the executive branch of the Whatcom County government, but you can't do it all. So, Mr. Sidhu, what characteristics do you look for in a department head?
Yes, I think we have excellent organization already, but if I have to look for a new department head, the most important thing is thinking outside the box and be creative. be compassionate. It cannot be always about just money, 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 because you lose sight of people. It's the people who get things done, not the money. We have seen you can throw as much money at a problem. If you don't have right people, it doesn't work. So my criteria is person is properly qualified for the job, has properly right experience. When those things are equal, then you have to look at how is things long term. Everyone can think of problem tomorrow and day after. What about 10 years from now? How it's going to impact and how innovative that person is. Those are the things, that's what I have done coming as an immigrant, getting to this position. That's what's been my key, and that's what I look for people. And I have hired a lot of people in my life in different companies, and at Bellingham Tech, they're still working there. Very happy people. Thank you.
Mr. Larson?
Yeah, I completely understand the difference between businesses and government. Just because you're government, it doesn't mean you shouldn't operate efficiently, and it doesn't mean you should pay more than you need to for services. Because if you're overpaying for services, it means that those resources aren't going to a place where they could really be used. So efficiency is vitally important. It's not about taking wages away from anybody. In fact, we will increase the benefits. That's why the unions have bought onto that concept. And in fact, and it's voluntary at first. And what happened in that model is it was voluntary, and the CEO himself went to the clinics. And over time, guess what the rate of participation is now? 100%, because it's valuable to the employees. They get to choose. So that being said, the kind of department heads that I would want to see, and in fact we're going to lose one for sure. Health and Human Services, I believe we've got a couple of retirements there. There's going to be some real big losses there. But I want folks that are there to serve our community. I mean, the approach that I take on things is I call it OPA. You identify the outcome. What do you want? Why do you want it? And to me, that's a community. That's a process. And then once you identify what you want and why you want it and why it's important, and we agree on that in consensus, then it's a matter of what actions do we take in order to get there. And there's many different ways to take actions to accomplish things in efficient and effective ways. And I want people that sort of understand that concept, that we're there. We may be in government, but it doesn't mean that we can't be extraordinarily efficient, provide services at a high level. And I think that's what we can do as Whatcom County government.
Let's stick with this area for a minute. Some leaders and managers are very hands-on. Others tend to delegate. Some lead by setting examples. What's your leadership and management style, Mr. Larson?
It is, first and foremost, you have to have competent managers, and that's, you want to make the group that you're managing really as small as possible to be as effective as possible. And the way you do that is you have your key people, but at the same time, you really need to create a vision and get people bought into it. It's not by dictatorship where you say this is the way we're going to do it. You got to share with people why it's important. Like in planning, for example. I mean, there's a real challenge in planning now, and I think there needs to be a cultural shift. We're talking about housing issues, and we've got people that can go to the counter, and it doesn't matter whether you're developing a new business in Whatcom County or you're adding on to your home. If you're getting a permit, you can have a person go into one line and that person, that same project go into a different line. You can get different results. And so we just really need to curate this culture where we're here to facilitate, we're here to help you. We're here to serve. It's I'm running for county executive because I want to bring my skills to serve the community. I want to make it better. And that's the kind of culture that I want to create, not only with department heads, but everybody that works in Whatcom County.
Mr. Sidhu.
Yes. I will give you an example of running a volunteer organization. The volunteers are not trained for the job, and you can't fire them. So if you can make a volunteer organization work, the skill. I think the skill is putting the trust in the people, facilitating their work. When I came to Bellingham Tech, I was told, Satpal, deans come, deans go. If you stay in your office and you leave us alone, we'll do fine. That was my welcome speech from the faculty to me, because I had never worked in that organization. But when I left 7 years later, every faculty came to me, why are you leaving? You need more money, we'll go to the management, we'll get you more money. That is the proof. We can talk all day long. I have hired people when I was president of a solar company. We did a $40 million project in Peterborough, in Canada, took a garbage dump, old garbage dump, and created a 200-acre farm. And I went there 3 times only. They threw in the whole project, and everything worked perfect. It's how you trust people, how you enable them, how you facilitate that they can work their best. And that's the style of management I have.
Okay. Let's just have a question here that we'll let you guys expand a little bit. What's the biggest challenge Whatcom County faces in 2020, Mr. Sidhu?
Yes, many. And they are equal, actually. I think one of the things is capital planning. I have been talking about that we need a joint civic plan. We have properties which you guys own, not city or county. And why don't we can have a civic complex 30-year plan where we can have a joint building. We can have an 8-story building for city and county. We can have 1 parking garage. We are using the Primo land to park cars. We can have a 30-year plan and save money on soft cost, on the bonds, on everything else. I think that's a challenge we have for the city and the county, how to have the capital spending done. The operations are taking up all the money, and I have a real plan to work with the new city mayor and create a 30-year civic capital plan for city and county buildings.
Mr. Larson?
Yeah, I think the biggest issue facing Whatcom County really is the housing issue. I mean, that's why I wouldn't call something a crisis lightheartedly. I mean, it's a crisis. It means that you need to, you know, the whole idea of calling something a crisis will bring immediate attention to it. You know, basically what you're saying is that this is a big issue. We need to focus our energy and our attention on this. Otherwise, it's going to get worse. And you know, we've got, as I said, and it trickles down to the least among us, the most vulnerable in our communities. And we're seeing it in the homeless population, and you know, increases there. And you know, the low-income housing right now, I think Whatcom County spends about $5 million on low-income housing. I had a conversation. Terry, you asked a question last night at the forum, and I don't know that, and it was really about how does Whatcom County and Bellingham get together and really, you know, are we spending enough? Well, I don't know the answer to that, but we definitely need to make sure that resources are being put in the right place. And if we don't have places to house people and our population grows, this problem is going to be exacerbated in multiples, and we're going to see the challenges every place else. So to me, that's where it starts. And my hope is that I could work with the county council, I'd work with the Bellingham, I'd work with the mayors, and we really need to come up with a comprehensive plan to put more housing supply online. And in some cases, it's not, you know, there's going to be people, you know, I don't want it there, but you know, and I get that, but that's what leadership is about. We're going to have to make some tough choices, and we're going to have to solve this. Otherwise, it's only going to get worse.
Okay, well, let's do a quick lightning round, and while we're doing this, let's get our microphone people in place, and then we'll open up questions to the floor. And when I say lightning round, I want you to be quick, just like lightning, okay? 15 seconds or so tops. Let's see. Let's start with, whose turn is it now? It doesn't matter. Okay, let's start with this. This is going to be quick. The most influential person, past or present, in your life, Mr. Sidhu?
It was my teacher in grade 12, and that made me become I was 19-year-old when I got a degree in physics and mathematics, and it was his teaching that I still admire.
Mr. Larson?
Sid Barron, he's a local entrepreneur. He passed away this last March. I spoke at his funeral and realized when I was speaking for him, he's been my mentor. I met him when I was in college, extraordinary person. And I realized that when I was speaking at his funeral, I was the same age right now as when he met me. And it just gave me sort of hope that I want to use that as an example for what I do moving forward.
What's the last book you read, Mr. Larson?
Actually, right in the middle of it right now. It's called The Success Lie. It's by a local author. It's a great story of a young lady, a young woman here. She has a company that has 450 employees now. Her husband left her kids, left her alone. She started this business out of her apartment, and she's sort of grown it. And now it's all about balancing your life and her story. Very empowering, especially to young ladies.
Mr. Sidhu?
I read a book very recently. It says, "Don't polish your ignorance, it may shine." No, it is a real book, and it's only 150 pages, and it's worth reading. Check on Google Books.
Okay, one last lightning round question. Mr. Sidhu, what's your favorite place in Whatcom County?
You know, many places. I am a people person. Wherever there are people, kids, I just enjoy the place. I'm not a particular person. That's the place I want to go to. My home is my best place to be.
Mr. Larson?
Well, I have very fond memories of Chuckanut Drive, parking there, pulling out a champagne glass from behind the seat, and proposing to my wife. So that better be the answer.
All right, some great places there. Okay, so it's time to open up questions from the audience here. We have people with microphones. Make yourselves known to the people with the microphones. We have one on this side, one on this side. They will come around to you. I ask you to put your questions in the form of a question. And there's no time limit on these, but I do ask that both questions and answers be as brief as possible so that we can get more in. Now let's start with this side over here.
Yes, I have a question, probably for Tony mostly. I heard you say that the new triage center would have 16 beds, and I understood it to have 32, 16 for mental health and 16 for people with addiction problems. But my question is more, what are we planning to do? I mean, these short-term fixes aren't really fixes. You need a long-term treatment for these people. What is your plan to treat them? Where do we take them to treat them after the triage?
Great question. My understanding, and I could be wrong, my understanding is that we're adding 16 more to bring it to 32. Somebody might be able to, I believe that's correct. So we're actually adding 16 more, which is not adequate. There's a concept that's floating around, and I've been connecting with different folks, but and it's some private sector folks that really have a passion for solving this problem. They've got some models. In fact, one of the person, he's a very good friend of mine, and he was actually involved in starting a triage in Colorado Springs, Colorado, and that was 30 years ago. He's still a board member there. He's talked to a number of private sector potential investors about doing something big, and the idea is that, again, it's connect and direct. Connect, assess, and direct. So the idea is that the one commonality that everybody has a challenge is they've lost connection, with loved ones, with their support system, with their family, and creating some sort of connection with them. If you don't do that, that's really the baseline to transition people to self-sufficiency. And then sobriety or mental health, and having everything in a location where, because my belief is that the idea of us planning where we're going to put the tent cities in Whatcom County shouldn't even be on the table. You want to talk about, somebody living in a tent and begging on the streets, that is inhumane. It's not compassionate at all. And I think that we need to step up and figure that, no, you're not going to be on the streets, but we need to have an alternative for that. And that may require an investment, and it may require a big conversation, and somebody's going to have to lead that. And I'm more than prepared to do that.
Mr. Sidhu?
Yeah. I think that we have 16 beds already, which is part of the Division Street Jail, but we are building a new building with 32 beds so that we can create a building which has the modern amenities and all other facilities to do that. So it will be a 32-bed facility, adding 16. Now, on the long-term care, I think the disinvestment our state and our nation has done when Mr. Reagan said that we should eliminate these institutions. It was really pathetic institutions, that good decision. But nothing was put back in place. And it takes that long when it comes and bites you. And I think that county doesn't have resources to create, and we would need a private-public partnership of the sort to create a long-term care facility.
Question to my right.
Hi, I have a question regarding how each of you would have to change your perspective point of view once you represent a larger constituency, the entire county, rather than just presumably a narrow constituency of a councilman. For example, was there a vote or a position you took as a councilman that you would have to moderate or even change once you're a county executive? Thank you.
I'll go first. I think the first is, I just described, is the budget. When I was county council member, I am right now county council member, I had a very different perspective. And I think as a county executive, the role will be totally reversed. And I look forward to that. I have ideas what I did at Bellingham Tech and in the private business, because I have a much, much wider experience. I worked in 3 different countries. I worked in several different states. I have worked with multi-million-dollar projects right from start to finish. So I do have a good idea how my new role will be, but that will be my instance.
Mr. Larson?
Yeah, well, I was on the county council a number of years ago, and first and foremost, I've got to say that I've got extraordinary admiration for anybody that steps up and not only goes through the process, but you know, I was asked when I won my county council race, what are you going to do if you, or prior to it, what are you going to do if you win? And I jokingly said I may ask for a recount because you know the county council role, it's a part-time job per se, but the reality is, you know, when you get, you know, I saw Red here as well. You get an 800, 900-page packet, you know, the Thursday before the Tuesday of a meeting. It is a lot of work. And I found that the limitation that I had was I really needed to focus in on the things that were most important to me, you know, and I just couldn't handle everything on a part-time basis. And so one of the things I'm really excited, and one of the things that I focused on when I was council was really on financial responsibility. I mean, the staff got very used to, at every meeting when something came up, I chaired the finance committee, and everything that came up, they just got used to it. They got conditioned that they're going to tell me, number one, was it bid out for local companies? And secondly, let's justify the cost. Let's go down and justify the cost. And so they got used to it where they were bringing that before I asked. And I think the transition to county executive, the thing that I'm really excited about is I'm going to be able to put 100% of my time, focus, and energy into this role over the next 4 years. And that's exciting to me because I think there are a lot of opportunities. We tend to, in situations like this, we tend to focus on the challenges, but there are tremendous opportunities that we haven't even talked about. And I'm really looking forward to being involved and part of seeing how I can make Whatcom County better.
Let's go to this side of the room.
Go ahead. Is it on? Yes, it is.
Hi, I have a question for both of you. A recent FBI report gives 0 credence to the good guy with a gun myth. 0 credence. How is it possible that we still have a general attitude that arming ourselves personally is the right answer to any confrontation?
I'll start that. I'm essentially all I can do. I mean, that is really a personal question, and all I can do is answer for myself. And I can tell you that, and I shared the story about Macy's, and it was then when I got a firearm. I went and I got training on it. I know how to use it, and it changed my entire perspective of when I went into a facility. I knew I had a firearm with me. I looked at the doors. I looked at what was going on. I mean, I take that with extraordinary responsibility. So I can't say that that's good for everybody, but I say for me, it gives me a tremendous amount of comfort that if, God forbid, an event took place and I was there, that I would be prepared. I mean, just in the same way that we'd want a police officer there, I think. That's the way I look at it. They're not always going to be there. And so I'm not talking about a blanket. I'm not talking about a blanket policy. I'm not talking about advocating that in any way. That's not the role of the county executive. All I'm sharing is from a personal standpoint, for my personal protection and the protection of anyone around me, I feel very comfortable carrying a firearm.
Mr. Sidhu?
I think that we are a nation who's living constantly in fear, and that is being in a feedback loop. You must be scared. You must do something. Something is coming. Something is coming. Something's going to kill you. We all die anyways. I think I think, you know, in the end, that's the end of our life. I mean, you know, the whole story. But I think that we should be courageous enough. If people want to have arms, I'm not against that. That somebody's going to make a video out of that now. I'm not against having guns, but I'm against gun culture, fear culture. I have to defend myself. You know, we are the a nation where police comes in 2 minutes. We are a nation where ambulance comes in 2 minutes. You know, we have paid into that system. Yes, people want to have guns, they're welcome to, but promoting the gun fear and gun culture, we must have an adequate regulation, some sensible things like background checks. People are against that. Background checks. They said, give the guns free to anybody. Free means without checking in them, not financially. I think that's what we need to stop as a nation. It's not individual thing. As a nation, we cannot live in fear. The kid who's 10 years old, first thing is get a gun because you're gonna get killed. Can you imagine that? If that's the fear we are putting in our own kids and our own people, when you get out of the house, we are not Mexico City. We're not Rio. We are America. And we should respect that. And we should enjoy that America. Thank you.
Question over here. Racer.
Hi, my name's Ellen Murphy. If you believe in the science of climate change, then you may realize that within 20 years, 40 miles of the Nooksack River will exceed the thermal tolerance of salmon. So it's hard to understand how additional hatcheries are going to solve that problem. If you believe in the science of climate change, you also understand that there's a lot of potential for flooding and sea level rise, yet the county keeps approving developments and housing in these areas. So I guess my question is very simple. Yes or no, do you believe in the science of climate change?
Mr. Larson, I think it's up to you now.
Yes, I believe the things are warming, and I think that we need to address it.
I believe the climate change is real, it's not a hoax, and it's man-made. If we look at 150 years, what humans have done, we have become human-centric. All other species, all other things for human species to consume, alter, change for our good. Nature comes back with a vengeance and wait for that vengeance. So we can do something, we can reverse it. I think we work together. There are innovative ways to take care of this problem. One of the things is that, which Lummi Environmental is behind, that we can create some artificial beaver dams in our creeks, fish-bearing creeks, which are very low level, so that's not a hindrance, but we can raise the level by 2 feet, 3 feet. And year-round, the creeks will have not problem of low in-stream flow. We have solutions. Science has solutions for everything, but we have used science in the wrong way for 150 years. Let's use it in the right way. Thank you.
May I make
Please, go ahead.
Just adding that. So I mean, my belief is it's not if we address it, it's how we address it. And I think we have to really be careful. I mean, right now, many of you may be aware of the Climate Action Task Force from the city of Bellingham. And some of the proposals they're putting forward are mandatory transition, complete transition from gas to electric in every mandatory for every new home sale. I mean, you're talking about adding $20,000 to $30,000 on the price of a home with no choice at a time when we're talking about a housing crisis. So it's those kinds of things. We have to be really, there needs to be science and numbers and data associated with how we address it in the same way as there's data. I mean, we recognize there's a problem, but I think there needs to be some way to identify how can you put resources so that you can get the best return on those resources that you're putting into it. And an idea like that, I think, could be really challenging. I think that could create more of a problem than it solves.
Can I add something to that? Okay. I think that, this is not mandatory. The recommendations haven't even come out. They were just a preliminary draft proposal. The second thing is, if the interest rate goes to 8% tomorrow, and we have no control on it, like you and me, what would that do to the price of the house? So I think that just blaming, this is the theory of fear, blame and fear. It would stop you from doing anything. What about the gas price goes to $5 an hour? What will do that to your income? And it has happened. We went through that $5 gas. We went through 16% interest rates. So just blaming that this is the one which will kill all the housing is a fear. Yes, maybe it could be transitioned over some time. It's not like tomorrow we're going to just do that. It will take time. The same thing with transition. Like we talked about the biodiesel plant, $1 billion. Yes, I support that $1 billion because it'll take us transition time to do that. But it doesn't mean that when we write a language now, everything is either killed or don't do anything. I think that's the extremes which has been stopping us from taking any action. Extremes.
Okay, question over on this side.
Yes, I have a question about recycling. How would you grade our current recycling efforts in Whatcom County, and what would you do to improve them?
You want me to start? Yeah. Okay. D-. I think that, we can just learn from British Columbia. They have a program called Recycle BC. Every little thing is getting recycled there and recycled in the true sense. We may be recycling at our curbside, but once it goes away, it may just go back to the landfill. Because we have never created, we have a culture. We don't need to do anything. We used to send it to China. They suddenly stopped. Now we have no solution because we don't think through. It's unnecessary. It hurts by profitability. So let's not do it. Clean water, clean air, hurts profitability. Let's not do it. And when it comes and bites you, then we are stumped. What do we do now? If we do it as we start, if the companies make plastic, they are mandated that, or given this provision, that you should create at the same time with the same science how it's going to be reused, how it's going to be recycled, so that solution comes. We did that with waste oil. The waste oil companies, the lube oil companies, they charge everybody of you 10 cents when you get your oil change. Every quart is 10 cents. That 10 cents goes to recycling. Have you seen that recycling? In Whatcom County, this waste oil used to be mixed with water and put in roads as dust control, I have seen this in the last 30 years. Now, have you ever heard about waste oil problem? Because the solution was found. It's there. The solutions for recycling, we have them. We don't have political will to do that because it hurts profitability.
I'm not sure if you're talking about Whatcom County or all of Whatcom County or Whatcom County government. Either way, I think Satpal would be in a better position to know what the Whatcom County government is doing as a current member on the county council. What I would say is the approach that I take on anything is if you want to do it really well, you find out who's doing it well and you duplicate what they're doing. I mean, you find the best. It's all about best practices. So, if you're going to do an evaluation and you need data in order to do that, how are we doing? I don't have the answer to that. I'd love to see the data if that's available. And I think that's just a general approach is rather than, we like to think that we're creative, but, when we come up with a good idea, a good brainstorm, it's probably there's a very high likelihood that somebody else has come up with that idea previously and somebody's probably employing it. So I think looking around to find out communities that are doing things really well, looking at what they're doing to see if we can't duplicate that here, that would be my approach.
confess I've lost track of which side is next. Here it is.
Whoever. We're expecting massive population growth. Not everybody is going to be like many of us coming to retire. We need to attract and hold businesses in Whatcom County. Does Whatcom County currently have a business-friendly approach? If so, how would you improve it? If not, what would you do about it?
Yeah, so this is something that's interesting because you know I'm engaged with a number of people. There's a group, Team Whatcom. We've got a number of members that are here that we have these discussions with the Port of Bellingham, et cetera, and that's a big discussion, and it gets taken out of context. So I would say we don't have a strong business climate. And what that means, it doesn't mean that businesses aren't thriving, and in fact, right now, the economy is very, very strong. But when we talk about business climate, we talk about attracting new businesses to the area and the ability for businesses that are here to expand. Department of Commerce for the state, they won't recommend Whatcom County because they know it's very, very difficult to get a project off the ground. So we do need to improve the business climate, and we need to, and there's a lot of pieces of that. That's not saying that this is a lousy place to do business. What it means is, I think it's going to start in planning and really looking at, you know, maybe doing a scrubbing of some of the, you know, some of the code and really finding out where the inefficiencies are there. And as a community coming together, and let's just say we had a new energy opportunity. A company, you know, maybe Tesla wanted to build, you know, an additional battery factory. They just built one in Nevada. What if they wanted to expand here? And we knew that that was going to be good jobs, increased wages, you know, good opportunities. You know, what are we prepared to do as a community to facilitate that process? And right now, they just simply wouldn't, because there's just, number one, there's not a place for them to build, and number two, getting a project. I mean, there was the Discount Tire on Bakerview. It took 6 years from beginning to get that project permitted. 6 years. I mean, and that's a small, relatively small little enterprise. I mean, we have to put some thinking. I think the people that are seriously talking about how do we attract businesses to our community, you know, they're not saying Bellingham, Whatcom County is a bad place. We're saying what we need to do is, we know we're competing with other communities that are prepared to roll out the red carpet, that are prepared to do things to attract the kind of businesses that are going to facilitate, you know, higher wages and those sorts of things. So either we're prepared to do that or we're not. And I know the folks in the economic development community are, but it really requires bringing everybody together to have that conversation. And what exactly does that look like?
Mr. Sidhu?
I think the business-friendly doesn't mean that business can come and do anything they want to, but that's how it is interpreted. That's how it is interpreted. If you ask a question, this was being said about the coal terminal not too long ago. You guys all know that this community pushed the coal away, and there were people promoting coal terminal. How backward you could be. So I think that the argument being made is, do we have prudent policies? Do we think ahead of time or after the person comes in and then disclose to him that, okay, you made the investment, now we're going to make you do this thing? I rather have do this that be socially responsible, be environmentally responsible, be community oriented. And that's not job killing. Just three values are not job killing. But that's what is being promoted. You know, this environment of that this is not a nice place to do work is been promoted by the business themselves. There were signs all over our county with WBA on it, the worst county to do business, whatever, I don't remember the wording. It was put all over. We got to be prudent. We got to be conscious. We got to invite people. You know, the refineries, they've been doing projects. There are no new projects in our county. Their new companies have come. Kona Cycle, they were, I can count all these things. You know, it's not that we have driven away. What we are told, driven away. Every business is going to leave. This is being told today. The moratorium, the change in comp plan will make refineries to shut down. That's what is being promoted today. Nothing can be further from truth. People should read that comprehensive plan changes. Yes.
The witching hour is approaching.
Sorry.
So we're going to have to go into closing statements. Mr. Sidhu, you're up first. 2 minutes.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I think the choice in this race is very clear. I have the right experience and visionary leadership to tackle the challenges facing the Whatcom County. I was born in India. I have lived in 3 different countries. I speak 4 different languages. And I'm a professional engineer. I'm a Fulbright scholar. I was Dean of Engineering and President of a solar company. I have served on more than 12 different nonprofit boards in our community, and I'm asking to serve as your next county executive. People say that I'm the voice of reason and thoughtfulness on the county council. I have worked with groups of all political leanings, means from the extreme right to extreme left. I can walk into any organization, and I have not only I have walked into all these groups and have conversed with them. That's my record. And that's the reason I'm being supported by hundreds and hundreds of small businesses, tribal leaders, farmers, unions, environmental groups, minority communities, and common citizens like you. I think that I'm an optimist. I firmly believe Whatcom County is the best place to live. It is the best place to do business, and it's best place to save our environment for the future of our kids and grandkids. This is my commitment to you that I will work tirelessly for you, with you, over the next 4 years to achieve real progress on the tough issues we are facing. Please help me become your next county executive. God bless America. God bless you.
Mr. Larson.
There are a number of issues that we've talked about today. All of them are very important. All of them are very serious. I mean, our community is changing. The county executive job, really, it's a leadership position. I mean, we talked about a lot of policy issues. Those policy issues are really done by the county council. The county executive job is to really manage the affairs of the county. And my position is this: is that in a policy position, you're gonna treat things very differently. As county executive, you are there to execute. You're there to look at the budget. You're there to make sure that we've got the resources to do the things that we need to do and bring big ideas together. This campaign should be about ideas. And my philosophy and my approach is to bring everybody to the table, and the best idea wins. You know, and maybe it's multiple people, getting multiple people together and shaping an idea. Maybe there's good pieces from everything. But ultimately, we need to agree and have a consensus on where we want to go. And once we get there, it's the county executive's job to make it happen, to make sure that we've got the resources, to make sure that we've got the staffing in place. And that's what I will do. I have a track record of working with people. You know, endorsements, I mentioned that all the mayors have endorsed me. The president of the Bellingham Police Guild, the Sheriff and Deputies Guild, Fire District 7, the president of Water District 7, who's focused on Lake Whatcom, housing, the Realtors Association of Whatcom County, because of these housing things we're talking about. The Affordable Housing Council, County Executive Jack Louse, you know, talked to both of us, and he's not a personal friend, but we talked philosophy, and we talked sort of where we were headed, and he endorsed me. For economic, you know, the Port of Bellingham, Ken Bell, Laborers, Associated General Contractors, the Whatcom Farm Bureau, more businesses, and in fact, last night at a forum, somebody said that two-thirds of my my supporters were oil. No, there are 2 of them: Cherry Point employees and Phillips 66. But I've gotten more business support, small business, manufacturing, technology, farmers than any candidate in the history of Whatcom County. So thank you.
Okay. Well, I'd like to thank both of our candidates for a provocative yet thoughtful and civil conversation. And thanks for all the great questions.